Hey y'all, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I know there are a lot of people that are just starting to prep and kind of confused as to where to start, or even if you're prepping, this may be a good video for you, just to kind of remind you of a few things. So I want to get into this. This might be like a couple of videos that I have geared towards preparedness and just different tips and tricks and different things that you need to be looking at when it comes to your home and your family. So we're going to get into food first, because that's important. That and water are the top two essential things that you need whenever anything happens, whether it's a disaster, job loss. You have to have food and water to survive. When it comes to prepping, the first rule of thumb is to buy what you eat. If you haven't tried something before you go out and get, 6 or 8 or 10 cans or, boxes or jars of something, just get 1 or 2 or whatever it is that you're going to use for your meal for your family. That way, if you like it and you're not out of money. You haven't wasted on money that could have went towards your food preps in another area. When you're buying what you eat, you want to look into what kind of meals you typically eat, what kind of snacks you typically eat. If you bake food, if you bake desserts and cookies and cakes, make sure you're buying those items. Just make sure you're looking at your entire pantry overall. Just don't think, oh, I need to focus on food, because you want to have comfort foods and sweets and junk in your pantry. That's my personal opinion. Figure out how much your family normally eats and who normally eats, and also whether you're going to have company or family members that may come stay with you in the event of an emergency or, some kind of unforeseen circumstance happens. If I go out and buy 10 bags of rice, that might be sufficient for my family, but for your family, you might need double that, or you might need less than that. If you have 2 people in your family and you have 10 people in your family, everybody's family looks different, and also the amount you eat looks different. I have one child that my 2-year-old can out eat them easily. So like I said, you want to take into everybody's appetite into account as well. And then you also want to take into account what they eat. Do you have people in your family that eat on the healthier side? Do they have any health restrictions or health issues where they have to have like a modified diet or a special diet? Any kind of gluten sensitivities, gluten allergies, if they have like a soy allergy, if you just don't do soy. Take all of that into account when you're looking at foods and wanting to store food, especially long term. And like if you're cooking spaghetti, you need to know if you only use 2 packs of hamburger meat, and how big are those packages? Are they 2 1-pound packages? Is it a big old pack of 4-pound ground beef that you're cooking? Noodles, do you use 2 boxes of pasta or do you use 4? Just make sure you have a good idea. And it wouldn't even be so bad to write down the recipes and write down, okay, I'm making spaghetti on Monday night, I need 2 boxes of this, 4 jars of this, and so on and so on. Also, when it comes to food storage, how do you want to store your food? Do you want to just keep everything in the boxes, which I really don't necessarily advise, but if that's all you can do, hey, do it. Just make sure you're taking those precautions and make sure you... Okay, so what I was trying to say before my phone cut off because it was overheating, just make sure you figure out a way to store your food. Like I said, I don't really advise like keeping everything in the boxes. If that's the best you can do, then by all means do it, but please make sure you take those precautions. As I was saying before, you don't want your whole pantry ruined by weevils or any other kind of bugs, so make sure you're sticking certain things like in the in the freezer for a certain amount of days. Put them in the freezer for a little bit, take them out, put it back in, and take them out. And you shouldn't have an issue. You can also use mason jars. I love storing certain foods in mason jars, especially like the big old ones that I think they're hard to find now, but I first got all of my canning jars back in 2020. I just got a different variety, and a lot of them are actually still stored in my garage. Also, Mylar bags are another good one. There's lots of good companies that sell them. I actually got mine from like a local company in North Carolina a few years ago when I started prepping as well. Different sizes, different varieties. Make sure you're picking up your oxygen absorbers as well for that. And then I even have some rice that is stored inside of 5-gallon buckets. The Mylar bags are inside the 5-gallon buckets, and it's holding rice. So you can also use 5-gallon buckets without Mylar bags. So this food can be stored without Mylar bags. It's really just personal preference. You also want to make sure that you figure out where you want to store your food at your place, whether it's an apartment, a condo, wherever you're living, a townhome, a house. figure out where exactly in your home that there's space for this food. You also want to make sure you're keeping it away from light. So I learned that when I was first prepping, because I did have a large window at the last house that we were at. That's before we bought our home a couple of years ago. And I had a really large window, but what we did was buy blackout curtains. And then I also bought, what do you call them? Shelf protectors. So not only does it protect the food from getting dusty and everything, if you don't have like a walk-in pantry that's like big enough, it covers like your shelving, it doesn't get dusty, and it kind of can block out lights depending on how it is. And keep in mind, you might not have a walk-in pantry. Everybody doesn't have a walk-in pantry, and if you have a walk-in pantry, it may not be big enough to store this amount of food. That was part of the issue in my last place. Like, we had a little pantry off of the kitchen, but it wasn't huge. And then when we bought our home, we don't have a pantry. And I'm not sure, like, I talked to my husband a while ago about possibly adding a pantry and where we could, but we're not sure that we want to do that, because we're not sure that this is a forever home, even though when we moved in, we said it was, but we don't think that this is. We really have been looking at land and just want to be more self-sufficient. That's a whole nother discussion. But needless to say, there are many ways you can have storage totes. I have storage totes that I have food in, and I got those storage totes from Sam's, I believe, a few years back. They're just the black totes with the yellow lids. You can store plenty of foods in there. Under bed storage, and do that. Closet space, if you have an empty closet that you're not using. I just don't want space to like deter you from actually prepping. Don't feel like because you may have a 1-bedroom apartment that you don't have the space. You might not, go out this way when you're prepping. You might need to do like a vertical prepping, and like I said, the shelves would be good for that, or stack under your bed, or if there's like a closet, the bottom of a closet, that you can prep. You can do that. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go out and buy all these shelving units. You don't have to go and build a pantry. You don't have to, get wood and put together a special cabinet or anything to store your food. Prep on your budget. That's another thing. Just prep on your budget and do what you feel. The most important thing to do is have food in your home. You may want to look into like preserving and canning foods. There are lots of good people on YouTube that know how to can correctly. So just, you want to do your research. You want to also buy like the Ball canning book. They're, I think, $10-12 at Walmart, I think is where I got mine from, like years ago, back in 20. When I say years ago, a lot of this stuff I'm referring to is when I first started prepping, which was 2020, which I feel was really, really late to the game. But then again, I feel like it's not, because there's always people of different age ranges that start prepping. There's a lot of things happening in the world right now. I have a very uneasy feeling, just an unsettling feeling, and it kind of comes and goes, but this is the heaviest it's been, and I just don't know if it's just the result of like the hurricanes coming, and I just know that, weather modification is happening. I know that cloud seeding happens. I know that people are tampering with things, and I don't like it, and we have no control over it, so it's messing with me. And then obviously we have an election coming up, and it's a lot. Anyways, what I was talking about with canning, just figure out, do you want to buy most of your canned goods? Do you want to can most of your own food? Do you want to have a mix of things? That's what you need to check into. If you want to start canning, I would advise you to start doing research and, buy the items that you need if you can on a budget. I just don't want you guys to be overwhelmed with prepping. I know it can feel overwhelming when you first start prepping. You don't know what to do. You don't know what to buy. But like I said, start with what your family normally eats and go from there. Please don't get on YouTube or even other places and let what somebody else's pantry deter you from what you want to prep and how you're going to prep. You don't have to feel like you have to go out and spend thousands of dollars worth of money on food. Times are a lot different than they were a couple of years ago. So going out, running out, spending like a couple of thousand on food may not be so obtainable now, but you can do it on a budget. Keep in mind, store brands, can save you some money. Just do what you can on your budget. Don't let anybody make you feel bad. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. You guys take care, stay safe, and I will see you guys in the next one.